Whenever there's a major crisis, what the Liberal government has done by their inaction has conditioned Canadians to expect that the only response they can see out of their federal government is to restrict their movement.
Do you feel that? It kind of feels a little bit like hope, something that comes after people are so sick and tired of towing the line, being lied to, being gaslit, and divided over very normal common sense things, and they are done being quiet about it. We have some meltdowns and brutal fact checks in today's episode. I'm Jasmine Lane. Subscribe, follow, like, comment your thoughts down below, and as always, share this video. In case you missed it, and I can't wait for you to listen to this one, conservatives, according to liberals, are white trash dirtbags who are also allegedly racist, which is weird because they were just racist by calling us that and calling us out by our ethnicity. Anyway, whatever. Hypocrisy doesn't exist in their world now, does it? There's some new tariffs being slapped on Canada. Scott Moe did not hold back on that one, and neither did Conservative MP Michelle Rempel Garner when she spit some brutal truths out to the media during a press conference the other day. And maybe, just maybe, it's time we start focusing on, I don't know, the real issues rather than this silly obsession that they and only they have with Donald Trump that has absolutely nothing to do with Canada. All that and more coming up today on Over Opinionated.
Here's the aftermath of the Canadian election, and honestly, let's cut to the noise. The Conservatives didn't lose because their ideas were bad. They lost because too many low-information voters bought into a lie. I mean, the Liberals screamed Trump like it was a magic word. And people stopped thinking. Never mind that Canadian Conservatives have nothing to do with American Republicans. I mean, housing, inflation, crime, real issues were ignored in this election. Fear won. Facts didn't even show up, and the old media helped sell the fear. Even social media sold the fear. And voters, I mean, way too many voters, bought it without a second thought. There was a plan to fix this country, and it got buried under American drama. I mean, after 10 years of mediocrity and now very much likely a recession, I fear it's only going to get worse. I mean, the next election comes around, they'll find a new boogeyman. Honestly, you have to wake up. I mean, think for yourself. What are the real issues affecting your daily life? And don't let fear decide your future.
And you better appreciate this one because I had to subscribe to the Globe and Mail in order to get the full context of this article, which is, will Canadian vacationers in Florida continue to trade paradise for principle? And they have branded this exodus of the United States as virtue, as though the United States and having a vacation home in Florida, let's say, has anything to do with the real issues at hand here. But every single outlet that has been given government money has been doing this for months, where they have been stoking that psychological pressure. This is how psychological operations work, because they've turned it into a, well, everybody else is doing it, so you're a bad person if you don't do it too. And we've seen the ripple effect of that. Yes, travel is down. Yes, people are selling their vacation homes. Could also be due to the dollar, could be to the better return that you may see in some regions if you are selling them off. But at the end of the day, canceling a vacation has become the most patriotic thing you can do as a Canadian. What does that actually say about you?
Sorry, I'm getting a little passionate today about this, because that guy drives me crazy down south, I'll tell you, and 41 million other Canadians. So,
when your politicians encourage it, what does that actually say about your country? When they would rather have you divided and scared and just focused on things that truly don't matter, and they are silent on the things that really do matter.
Well, we're asking for the federal rules to change. And we're going to be operating those plants into the future to provide affordable, reliable power for Saskatchewan residents and Saskatchewan industries as we transition to a much cleaner nuclear power source. In fact, we're just putting together the finalities on, from an emissions perspective, that if we were forced and we can't do it in time by 2030. But if we were forced to switch to natural gas and then to drag out the conversion to nuclear that we are planning in this province, there would actually be a larger emissions profile by how we generate electricity over the course of the next 50 years. So our plan is to transition over time from a coal-fired generation source, ultimately to nuclear. In the same time, have the opportunity to transition and train our workforce that are currently working in coal-fired plants to work in our nuclear plants as we move forward. It's a structured, organized transition that will provide for the lowest cost of power for families in this province. And power costs are going to be an issue in the years ahead across Canada and around the world, but also provide the opportunity for us to continue a solid investment strategy in attracting businesses into the industries that are employing Saskatchewan people.
So, just to clarify, the government's imposed ideological mandates are hurting us. And then their response to other countries to try to prop up these fake, phony ideological industries that don't exist naturally and only exist due to subsidies and taxpayer funds before failing are also a priority of theirs.
But canola producers hit with these Chinese tariffs, I would say that they deserve the same attention by our federal government and our Prime Minister as we're seeing in other industries. And we are asking that this be dealt with immediately, and I've reached out to the Prime Minister this morning, and I expect I'll be speaking with him at some point later today. As has our Agriculture Minister reached out to his counterpart, and our Trade Minister talking to his counterpart. We've been asking our federal government and Prime Minister Carney to engage at the highest level since the federal election. And for over a year now, we've been asking the federal government to engage with China and start the advancement of those conversations to find our way to a solid and secure trade environment moving forward.
This is one topic that, as much as they want to scream Donald Trump, you have an industry that is being far greater affected by tariffs in retaliation to Canada from China that they're just completely silent about. And that industry, by the way, attributes for far more of our GDP, far more jobs than any of the other sectors that the Trump tariffs are hitting. So yes, China just slapped a 75.8% tariff on Canadian canola. They've accused Canada of dumping it at artificially low prices. And this isn't about farming at all. This is Beijing firing back after Ottawa put in 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs last year. Canola farmers are now being used as the collateral damage in this geopolitical trade war that they didn't start, that the Liberals are adamant on continuing no matter who it takes out, because as we always say on this show, it's ideology over anything else.
We need immediate action on this file. This is a significant Canadian industry, as I say, about comparable in size to the Canadian forestry industry and much larger than the steel, aluminum, and EV industry combined.
And do you want to know what is truly the most jarring, shocking, eye-opening revelation of all of this? It's the fact that Ontario, as an example, has launched a Protect Ontario financing program, which is rolling out up to $1 billion in emergency loans for businesses that are hit hardest by U.S. tariffs, specifically for steel, aluminum, and auto sectors. That's the first phase of their broader $5 billion Protecting Ontario account of your tax dollars. The federal government has also allocated tax dollars to help fund all of these targeted industries, as well as what was announced late last week, the softwood lumber industry. But the canola industry for farmers has not received any benefits. Nope, there's been no big announcement saying these tariffs from China are unjustified and they're hurting one of the largest sectors of our economy, and we are going to provide help for all of those who are struggling. And why aren't they doing that? Could it be because it has to do with China and not the USA? So it doesn't really fit the narrative. It doesn't hit the headlines the same way and create that irrational fear. If they're saying, oh yeah, China is actually decimating us so much more than the US is, we don't want to talk about that because we don't want people to know.
We as Canadians also, and I would say that our federal government cannot sacrifice a $43 billion canola industry, 200,000 jobs in that industry, that is largely based, in fairness, in Western Canada to protect a fledgling electric vehicle industry, largely based in Eastern Canada.
We will be getting to some of the unhinged meltdowns, and wow, do I have a lot of opinions on those in just a little bit. But first, I wanted to highlight the fact that Donald Trump has also issued a reprieve for China when it comes to tariffs. Still don't have one here in Canada, though. You ever seen the movie Mean Girls, and there's that viral moment where it's Regina George and Gretchen, and she's like, stop trying to make fetch happen. Fetch isn't going to happen. That's how I feel about Canada's EV sector. Stop trying to make EVs happen. It's not going to happen. Grow up, please, and thank you, and take care of us as you were elected to do and promised you would do. There are two incredibly different styles here, and I don't know how clear it is to everybody. It's just blinking in my face to me about how undiplomatic and poorly strategized the Canadian government is, which obviously leads me to think that there's something incredibly nefarious going on here. I'm sure you can guess what that is, because President Donald Trump signs his executive order saying that China and the U.S., they're going to have their tariff truce extended by 90 days. And as per usual, the left-leaning outlets are framing it as this reluctant, critical move, hammering down on Donald Trump and his protectionist fortress and all of these self-inflicted consequences of the trade war, which, you know, I guess we'll see if any of those come true. They keep saying it, and I keep seeing opposite to that, the results in the data coming out of the United States. Either way, they may claim that the extension to this is just going to delay economic harm and global tensions and could have some pushback from BRICS countries like India and Brazil. Right-leaning coverage, on the other hand, is calling it decisive. It's an executive order. They are praising it as significant steps in talks with China and describing tariffs as legally justified tools for national security and fixing trade deficits. The center is reporting just the date, the numbers, the facts without any adjectives in there. But that is exactly why I use ground news, because it doesn't just tell me the news, it shows me the bias that's baked into it and also allows you to check that bias in a very convenient bias comparison section in each and every single story that is published. And with Ground's blind spot feature, you can see which side of the spectrum isn't even talking about certain stories so that you're never stuck inside of an echo chamber, which could lead to radicalization, as we will get to later in this episode. So if you want the full story, not just one side, not just a spin, you want to know absolutely everything laid out for you, easy to follow, easy to understand, so that you can discern that information for yourself, go to ground.news/Jasmine. You can also scan the QR code on screen to get 40% off their Vantage plan. That's ground.news/Jasmine. And I'll also include a direct link to that in the description of this video.
Like, this is real. Stay out of the effing woods. People are like, you're stomping on my rights. Whatever. Rights, jog on. People are actually coming from Ontario to take pictures and videos of themselves in the woods saying, look at me, look at me. Do they even know why you're not allowed in the woods? It's not necessarily about somebody throwing a cigarette butt. It's the fact that you might trip and fall on a log or a rock or something and bust your head or break your leg, and all of a sudden there's firefighters in there, you know, coming in to rescue you, taking away from raging fires.
You know, that is one piece of information. We saw one of the other premiers kind of backtrack and say, oh, well, we're not banning you from entering the woods due to the risk of you starting a forest fire, but it's due to the risk of you, causing some issues with our first responders. You know what? Why don't you just do that then? Why don't you just put out a release and say, hey, everybody, you're free to do whatever the heck you want. But just a heads up that our emergency crews are completely overworked right now. And so if you want to go into the woods, that's your own decision. If you hurt yourself, you may not get help. So make sure you have your cell phone on you. Make sure you have flares. Make sure you have food. I don't know, whatever the heck it is. But you can still go in the woods because we don't think you're starting the fires. It's just because of our emergency crews, and we don't want them to be bogged down by your potential injury, which is quite rare, by the way, but that is still your choice to make as a citizen of this country.
So they don't want to deal with that. They don't want side-by-sides or four-wheelers rolling in the woods. They don't want people getting lost. Let's focus. Grow up. Canadians need to grow up. This is ridiculous. And now it's all started this racism stuff, like the immigrants are the problem. You're the problem. Get with it. Jog on. Leave if you don't like it. I love Canada for what it is and what it's become, and Canada is amazing because of all the people in it. Every shade of this world is here in Canada, and it's the best. The only problem, I'm going to say it, dirtbag white trash. That's the problem with this country, and you all know who you are. People on the right, jog on. Get out of my country. Let's go. Wake up. Grow up. Let's go, Canada. We rock. Love it.
People on the right, dirtbag, white trash. Buddy, you're white, first and foremost. Secondly, though, jog on, get out of my country. You know, we actually can't do that because unlike Mark Carney, we don't have 3 passports. We only have a Canadian passport. And it's actually quite impossible to leave the country under refugee status, let's say, in order to claim asylum in another country. It's actually pretty difficult in general to get a citizenship unless you're a business owner and you have legitimate means for it. But for the everyday person, what an unhinged response, by the way. Instead of saying, hey, I totally get why you're upset that you can't enjoy the last little bit of summer by going into the woods. I totally understand why you're upset that the government is treating you as though you are an arsonist. Meanwhile, arsonists just get community service. You get upwards of $150,000 fines. But, you know, we really just got to try to do this for the betterment of our community. Instead, it's filled with you're a racist, you're a MAGA, you're a bad person because you're white. And then, it started all this race stuff. Actually, buddy, the only thing I've seen about race stuff regarding this entire fire situation is coming out of your mouth. But please continue virtue signaling while you show us with every word that you utter who you really are.
Sort of the bans that are in place on hiking and other recreational activities in forested areas in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, given the wildfire considerations right now?
Sure. Well, first of all, the fear that people experience during wildfire season is something that a lot of Canadians know. You know, I think back to what happened in Jasper National Park last year as an Albertan. And so my hearts are with them and their concern. And also with the firefighters and first responders who put their lives in harm's way during these situations. But I also think about the utter lack of action from the federal government on the issue of forest fires. I think it's four seasons ago now, 4 full wildfire seasons ago, the Liberals promised more water bombers, more firefighters. Where are they? The other thing is that my Conservative colleague Mark Dalton put forward a bill to increase the penalties for people who commit arson that causes a wildfire. So these are both measures that could have prevented and contained wildfire, and the Liberals have done nothing. So wait, my concern is this. Whenever there's a major crisis, what the Liberal government has done by their inaction has conditioned Canadians to expect that the only response they can see out of their federal government is to restrict their movement. And again, I understand that I understand the fear and concern of people in the Maritimes right now, but that the only response they get from their federal government is a tacit, well, I guess you're going to have to restrict your movement. That's not right. So, you know, today we're calling upon the federal government to actually get serious about this issue, pass our bill, put forward the resources that they promised so that Canadians aren't put into this situation. I see this as a lack of responsibility on the federal government.
No. We're not going to be upset about all of those incredibly valid points, though. We're going to be upset about this.
These fucking people, man. These fucking people who don't step foot in the woods, right? Who don't live there. And they don't have any practical experience with this. They decide that this is a nice National Review, modern MAGA argument that they want to elicit. Like, you're going to look a firefighter in the face who's busting their guts, right? Risking their life to try to not just to try to contain this thing. And all they're saying is, you know what, like, let's not make the problem worse. Okay. Give us a chance at trying to get our hands around this thing. And these people are sitting in Toronto, you know, in a cafe writing because the Post media editor said, we'd like 3 more articles on this. And they're all wound up about how, you know, oh, my rights are being trampled on. This is the problem. This drives me crazy. I'm going to my mind, What's the defining characteristic of MAGA, of this whole sort of, post-COVID pushback, conservative sort of thought line, small c conservative, whatever it is, all that convoy conservatism, right? It's selfishness. It's just undisguised selfishness. I want to fucking do it. I have no sense of community, no sense of obligation to my neighbors, family, friends. If it's what I want to do, well, then I'm a hero. Now, these are the same people who will stand in their driveway with a bottle of beer and bitch and moan about why isn't the government cracking down on those that break the law and do this and do that. Why don't they enforce it? But it's when they enforce something they dislike, well, then they are all they're all freedom fighters. Fuck you. We have obligations. We live in a society. If a place is on fire, we rally together to help them. You don't say, well, this is an abrogation of my rights. Like, just fuck right off to these people.
What's the moral of today's story? Echo chambers are bad, and you should probably have some self-awareness and accountability for when you are stuck in them. I actually posted this. I'll just read it verbatim on X about this. If Scott Reed's podcast / line of work makes him this angry, I recommend he gets a new job. After seeing one too many of these erratic and uncontrollable outbursts, I am genuinely concerned for his physical and mental health. Your job should not make you this unwell. If it does, that's usually a sign to leave. If I was the program director at CTV or CBC, I would also be reconsidering his role as a political commentator on my programs, as this appears to be a ticking time bomb. Frequent name-calling, generalization, and assumptions aren't journalism or research. It's just cruelty at the expense of roughly 50% of the country and your audience. This is bad business as far as I can see it. Seems like this continued inability to regulate and control what comes out of your mouth is a liability that could greatly harm your ratings. Despite what the media will have you believe, the vast majority of people are actually center-leaning and agree with each other on most topics. People are not as divided as they would have you think. Echo chambers are bad and lead to radicalization, as is being displayed here. In any other industry, if you were having public erratic outbursts like this, you would lose your job because it would look bad on the company. And I'm quite shocked that he continues to be invited as a guest on CTV and CBC as this amazing political pundit, when clearly he is a very unwell gentleman. But his anger speaks of fear. His world is not secure, and he knows that. It's probably why, myself as an example, things peeve me every once in a while, but never like that, ever. I would never in a million years handle myself in such a disrespectful and sickening way, ever. None of us should. That is so deplorable and just useless and embarrassing and childish. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if Scott Reed needed to have more hugs as a child. I don't know if he's hungry. Maybe that's it. Maybe he's just really hangry when he films this podcast. But that guy really needs to learn how to regulate his emotions and how to quit before you end up dying from a heart attack or something, because it's unreal. The tirades he goes on that are so biased, so misinformed, and just so weak. So weak. Oh my gosh, I would be humiliated if my husband was going off like that on the internet. It is just so unbecoming, so selfish, as he said, and just so gross that he has a platform at all. And he's old. Like, that guy's old. There are so many old white men who are liberal that are the most deplorable people on the internet. And I'm like, who raised you? How am I younger than you? And I was raised with so much more respect and a desire to maintain respect for my family name and how I present even the most difficult things, the things that frustrate me the most. You are so old to be acting like that. Get some therapy. Go for a walk if you can, unless you live in one of the regions as we discussed earlier. Either way, though, I'm not going to dance around it. I normally wouldn't do this, but I definitely plan on writing into the ombudsmans for both CTV and CBC over this one, among many others. I doubt anything will ever happen because liberals do protect their own, but I can't stay silent on this one at the moment. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, like, follow, comment your thoughts down below. And as always, share this video, and I will talk to you tomorrow.